Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Courageous Conversations. I love that this is spring and it's popping through. I love plants. I love plants and I talk to my flowers and plants, but today we're talking about boundaries. So I'm going to do a little bit of sharing, and if this moves you, please do share as well, because I would love to impact lots and lots of people with this particular video and with all my videos. But here we go. It's time to do a little sharing. I'm going to first share. Hi, Julia. Nice to see you. I'm first sharing on my group, Courageous Conversations, which is a beautiful, safe space for people to share their truths. It's a closed group, so, we're all here to support you. And also, I'm going to share on my page, Courageous Conversations, before I get going on to this topic, which is an important one. And I really feel like the planet is sort of in need of these types of conversations, I think. And I'm going to share also on one or two other groups, because I do want people to join us. But I'm glad you're here, Julia. That's lovely to see you and your vibration. I could feel you, Julia. All right, so here we go. Let's talk a little bit about what I'm wanting to say today, which is there is a bit of a culture of numbing out, of not feeling what you actually feel, so that you possibly feel the feelings, but then what happens is that there is a habituation, a tendency, a patterning of just letting those feelings not come to the surface. And the truth is that, we learn this usually in our family of origin, in which when you have feelings, when you have emotions, when you have the need to draw a boundary, the need to say no, the need to, make a particular line in the sand in your life, what's happening is that there's this process that we learn because it's better that way, it's more peaceful that way, it's more surviving that way. And that process, then, what it does is it basically works to suppress what you're actually feeling. And so you might be feeling all kinds of and that's why we stop listening. We just stop listening and paying attention to what it is that we actually feel and want and need. I'm just going to turn it this way so my head doesn't have two things growing out of it. We tend to be very, very adept at making sure that we are sort of not the target of anger, or not the target of rejection, or not the target of disdain or ignoring or abandonment. And if any of that was present for you in your life, you are more likely to train yourself to not be at the mercy of those targets. And so then there is this elaborate internal process of just shutting down your needs and shutting down your wants because of the anxiety or the pain that it produces to come up with those things. A need, a want, a desire, an insight, a sharing of a truth. The reality is that process is a slow clamping down and shutting down of your true self. What I call the self-culture. The self-culture does not have a chance to develop itself. And so the process of developing a self-culture can be very, very much a painful one as you're growing again. And that is where we start to once again listen to the clues and the cues of our body. It's like, oh, here's a feeling, here's a need, here's a want. And if you're like, well, if I express that need, that want, that person's going to explode, or that person's going to reject me, or that person's going to ignore me, or I'm going to be seen as an alien in my home, or I'm going to be seen as high maintenance, or, I'm going to be seen as, it's all fun and games. People's like, oh, be yourself, draw your boundaries, be yourself. But the truth of the matter is that it's big work to lower your pain level and increase your self-loyalty level. That is painful work. And being yourself and expressing your boundaries and expressing your wants and saying no and all of those things, they require a meticulous process that you choose to engage in. And it is choosing to have a relationship with pain and with anxiety, but it's short-term pain for long-term gain, is how I see it. Because to go about a life, and I have done, to go about a life where you're not in any way drawing any boundaries, you're just the low-maintenance person, you're the person that everybody, that everybody, hi Ann, that everybody likes and everybody wants to be around, and you're just this great person and no boundaries and no boundaries and no boundaries, that's going to wear thin, and you're going to develop resentments. And then you're going to feel angry, and then the anger is going to be very much the way you show up in the world. And possibly that'll be anger turned inward, and it'll show up as depression. And then depression will will do its number on you. It will destroy your very lifeblood to be participating on the planet and showing up on the planet with your best self, or not even your best self, your peaceful self. Because anger turned inward often is depression. Not often, most definitely becomes depression. And for some people, it's anger turned outward becomes feeling just, angry at the world. So the truth is that it's so crucial to listen and pay attention to the cues that are showing up. Hi, Vincent. That are showing up on a regular basis internally, that you've maybe shut down, that you've done a lot of shutting down of, and that your ability to pay attention to that has been trained. You've been trained to squash those cues, to squash those feelings. And so the process of understanding what a boundary may be that is generated from those cues is a deadened process. So it's so important to work with a therapist, or work with a group, or work with a friend, or work with your journal if neither of those things are available to you. Hi, Margarita. Nice to see you. Work with those processes so that you can start to train yourself, because you've been untrained. Those of you who've come in late, please listen to the beginning of the video, because there's some crucial information there. You've been trained earlier in your life because of whatever trauma or rejection. I'm just repeating a little bit. Rejection or abandonment, or people have become angry at you when you express yourself, or people, or perhaps you've gotten a very clear indication from the way they're treating other people that it's just not a good idea to say no, or state a boundary, or express yourself, or be your true self, or be dissenting in some way, disagreeing with what's there, right? So that what happens then is you're basically trained to, to not really have the cues that are normal, We all have cues that are, and clues and cues that are like, oh, I don't feel good here, and let me just say that this doesn't work for me, or let me just express myself about this because this is something I need, or this is something I want, or this is something that I would prefer not happen, or here's my opinion about something. You have been trained. Or bullying. Maybe it wasn't in the family. Maybe it was bullying as a kid in school. Or maybe there was a school system that you were part of that was exceedingly strict and exceedingly square in terms of fit into this box, fit into this box. And so you decided, and maybe unconsciously decided, that, oh, it's just much easier to not have my needs and wants. It's just much easier to just, hi Janice, it's just much easier to just totally submit to what's in front of me. It's just much more peaceful to just, not ask for what I need, or say no, or state a boundary, or draw a line in the sand. It's just much more peaceful. It's like, I don't need that pain. But the problem is that when you go about the business of living life later as an adult, depression often is what I see in my office, or anger at life, and feeling like a victim constantly, that is just, and then I'm going to tell you right now that feeling like a victim constantly is such a powerful state of being, where people start to find ways to what I call weaponize the victimhood, where when you weaponize the victimhood is like using your victim state of being as a way to justify other behaviors, you know. And you got to look at yourself and go, am I doing that? Because there are so many things that are done to other people in the name of feeling victimized. And I'm going to tell you, that's the road to a very toxic relationship. And I'm not laughing at you I'm just with you on this. It's a very common thing. I see it so often in the office. And when I do talks, people talk about it, and people talk to me about when they're reading stuff that I've written, it's like, oh, they're talking to me about they feel like the victim, they've been hard done by. And you know what? Listen, when you're a child and when you're coming up in the world, when you have no power and you've been trained to shut up and you've been trained to just follow the rules and not in any way have an expression or the right to say, this doesn't work for me. You've come up in a family culture, which, by the way, is really common. You know, most of us grew up in a family culture is just, you know, seen and not heard. You know, if you're above 40, if you're above 40, the culture was children seen, not heard. You know, and essentially not only seen and not heard, but, you know, parents have all the power, kids have to follow the rules. And to dissent, to not agree with that is to essentially, you know, rock the boat, create problems, be high maintenance, called high maintenance. So the journey, in my opinion, of healthy adulthood is finding your internal clues, your internal cues and clues that are screaming at you. Hi, Mary. Nice to see you. That are screaming at you to say, this is uncomfortable for me. And because it's uncomfortable for me, I need to speak up. And it's going to cause you a lot. Often it will cause, if you've been trained not to do that, it's going to cause you anxiety, pain, fear, just avoidance. Avoidant. I don't want to do that. Much better to just let it go. I'll live with it. But if you pay attention to that and start to slowly, and in my books, and by the way, just so you know, I have a wonderful how to set good boundaries, very, very user-friendly, practical webinar on Udemy, Udemy. Look it up. It's very inexpensive, and it's an hour long, and it'll give you exactly methodologies to draw healthy boundaries. Go there. You will benefit from that if you're having trouble with boundaries in your own life. But back to here, if you confront that pain and that anxiety and that fear and all of the things that will show up that are uncomfortable, that are born from your cues, born from your internal clues of this doesn't work for me, and you start to slowly set boundaries, you will slowly chip away at the victimhood, at the anger, at the depression, and at the resentment. And that's what I'm talking about. That is what I am talking about. It is, to me, it's what makes good humans on the planet, to have better relationships. And that means you're taking personal responsibility for your life. You are being emotionally self-sufficient, and you are self-caring. And that's a great example for kids, and that's a great way to have a relationship, and that's a great way to conduct yourself on the planet. And it'll mitigate, it'll lower your levels of resentment and anger, and it'll start to heal some of the depression that's in you, if that's what it is. So I just want to say that, you know, none of this is easy, but if you've done the business of numbing out your feelings about, and the clues and the internal cues about that are naturally generated that help us draw boundaries, because you've come up in a family of origin or a bullying situation, or you've been in an abusive situation, and you're like, it's better to just numb that out, better to not even worry about not say anything, that will generate so much pain internally long term. So try to really work slowly at chipping away very slowly, very gently, very slowly. Make friends with the concept of I have to draw some boundaries or say no or express my dissent or whatever it may be. I have a feeling here that I need to speak. And find ways that are fair, kind, loving to express those things. I'm not saying that's going to go well every time. I'm just saying start to at least acknowledge the boundaries within you. Even if you've numbed them out to the external world, start to say, this is something I need for me, and this is something that's real within me, and start to self-acknowledge initially. And let's just see how that evolves. And join my group, Courageous Conversations, so you can share with us how that evolves. And so I hope this helps. And everyone that's tuned in, I really, really hope you share this information widely, because I believe that this is what causes healthy life, healthy world, healthy all of it. Hi, Mary. Nice to see you. I'm glad you're on with us. And all the other people that are also watching. I'm waving at you. All right. So I'm gonna begin my wrap up, because this is a short little video. But I just want to see different people who are commenting. Yeah, Mary, nice to have you, and everyone that's tuning on. I know this is a deep subject, but have a moment in which you start to, at least the baby step out of this. The baby step out of this is self-acknowledgement, and write down your discoveries about what you're acknowledging within yourself. All right? Have a brilliant day. Keep having courageous conversations with yourself and others. Like my page, Courageous Conversations, when you get a chance. And also join my group, Courageous Conversations. And check out my webinar on Udemy on boundary setting. All right. Have a brilliant day. Lots of love. And stay warm out there. It's cold in Toronto. Whoops.